My wife has a good buddy at work. They commute together every day, eat together, and even share a bed in the break room. Later, when I went to the company to find her, I even saw them feeding each other with the same spoon. I gently advised her, "Wife, we have a car at home. If you like something else, I can buy it for you. It's not good to always trouble others." But she got angry and said, "You have a dirty mind, seeing everything is filthy. I have normal social interactions, and you want to control that? No way." She said I restricted her freedom, and she never did anything to wrong me. But later, I saw their intimate photos on social media, face to face, lips to lips. I finally gave up and decisively divorced her. Yet she cried in the heavy rain, begging me not to leave her. I stood on the balcony, watching the black car downstairs, where Zhuang Yi was chatting enthusiastically with that man. When she got out of the car, she still had a smile on her face. The man also got out of the car, and the two leaned against the car chatting. Before long, he wrapped his arm around Zhuang Yi's shoulder, and Zhuang Yi smiled, resting her head on him. He was a new male colleague from her company, and after a short acquaintance, he started picking her up and dropping her off at work every day. At first, it was only on weekdays, but later he didn't even skip weekends. I asked her about it, and she always said she was working overtime or rushing projects, with a whole set of excuses. But when I went to the company to find her, the receptionist was very awkward, and I realized there was no such thing as overtime. The sound of the key turning pulled my thoughts back. I turned and walked into the living room, just in time to meet her gaze. "You're back," I said flatly. "Wash your hands and let's eat." She hesitated for a moment, walked over, looking restless, even dropping her chopsticks several times. "Are you in a hurry?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that colleague waiting for you?" She was taken aback for a moment, quickly turned off her phone screen. "It's nothing." I reached for the cup of water next to her, and she instinctively flipped her phone cover down on the table. "What are you nervous about?" I asked with a smile. A hint of impatience flashed across her face, and she didn't answer. "Give me your phone." I reached out my hand. Her eyes flickered, biting her lip, and the phone was also hidden under the table by her. "What are you doing?" "I just want to take a look." Just a few simple words, but she seemed even angrier. She suddenly raised her voice. "What's there to see? It's not like you haven't seen it before." I stared at her, suddenly feeling that this childhood friend I had known for over 20 years had become a stranger. I smiled self-deprecatingly, not intending to ask further, but she seemed to be provoked. "What does your smile mean? Do you doubt me? Haven't I told you many times not to investigate me, not to doubt me, and not to meddle too much?" Before I could say anything, she became emotionally agitated and even angry with me. After knowing her for so long, she has always spoken softly and rarely acted this way. Isn't this just a sign of guilt? I felt a sudden jolt in my heart, as if some things were already self-evident. Seeing that I didn't speak, she threw her phone in front of me in a huff. On the screen, there were chat records between her and a male colleague. "Just eat a few bites. We'll have a big meal later. Remember to wear that black lace dress from last time. You have such a great figure. I really like it every time you wear this style of dress. Sometimes I even dream about you at night." Zhuang Yi replied. "Since you want to see, I'll wear it. And also, I can be generous and let you touch it. What scent of perfume do you like? I'll spray it for you." I felt like I had a fishbone stuck in my throat, my heart heavy, as if a stone had dropped. Anyone who sees this chat record would only think it's a couple, right? But I am Zhuang Yi's partner. Zhuang Yi hurriedly took out his phone, awkwardly explaining. "Don't misunderstand. He just gave me a ride after the company dinner tonight." Heh. Do ordinary colleagues ask what clothes someone else's girlfriend should wear? I didn't pursue it further, just nodded lightly. "Oh, so tonight's date is canceled then?" She bit her lip and said nothing. Watching this dinner turn into this situation, my heart felt like it was being violently twisted. It's always like this. Every argument is about that guy. We've clearly been married for 3 years, and I thought our relationship would always be happy. It turns out everything was just my self-deception. Today is our 3rd wedding anniversary. I had originally prepared a surprise and planned to take her there after dinner. My friends are already eagerly waiting there, just to celebrate this day together. But it seems that such arrangements may no longer be necessary. In fact, I discovered that so-called male friend a long time ago. His name is Liao Yihong, and Zhuang Yi has him noted in her contacts as Little Sun. At first, she did show me their chat content quite openly. At that time, she often worked overtime, and Suzy Xuan said he often returned late, suggesting they share a ride home. She readily agreed, and I was also busy with my own matters, thinking it would be safer to have someone to share the ride with. I'm not a narrow-minded person. If we really shared a ride home, it wouldn't be a big deal since we are colleagues after all. But when I suggested sharing the fare, she politely declined, and when I offered to buy her a scooter, she thought I was being too extravagant. "You don't need to worry about our matters. Yihong is my good partner, and he wouldn't get tangled up in money issue. This is about feelings, you understand." Later, they began to say goodnight to each other. That gentle goodnight, which was originally mine alone, has somehow become their exclusive ritual. I can't even remember how long it has been since she last said goodnight to me. Gradually, their topics became more diverse. Besides carpooling home, they also had lunch together at the company and even met up at a nearby cafe after work. They were as close as confidants, which inevitably led to some gossip in the company. I wanted to remind Zhuang Yi, but she just casually said, "Rumors stop with the wise. We are just ordinary friends." Every time I saw their chat records, I was painfully stimulated by this relationship that danced on the edge of ambiguity. But she still acts as if nothing happened, as if everything is taken for granted in her eyes, without any sense of crossing boundaries. It seems she has forgotten that when I talked a bit more with girls in college, she would be jealous for a long time. Does she not understand the nuances of interpersonal relationships? She understands, but she is just deceiving herself, thinking she can also fool me. She is simply double standard, allowing the officials to set fires while forbidding the common people to light lamps. I still remember at the very beginning, when I handed her my phone, she confidently said to me, "With me, you can rest assured, I will definitely give you a sense of security." I closed my eyes tightly and then opened them again. These memories flashed through my mind, and before me was still her displeased expression. She put down her chopsticks, glanced at her phone, and anxiously said, "Chen Chun, do you really have to celebrate while I'm at my department's dinner today? Do you want me to be ostracized by my colleagues, left isolated and helpless? I can't bear the weight of this big hat." I still stubbornly asked, "Today is our wedding anniversary. Isn't it right for me, as a husband, to want to celebrate with you?" She was taken aback for a moment, her eyes flickering as if in thought, and after a moment, she revealed a hint of an awkward smile. Clearly, she had already forgotten that today was our anniversary. Her mind only focused on quickly attending the dinner with little son. "I really have plans today. I've already made arrangements in advance. Can we celebrate the anniversary later?" An anniversary is a day meant to be cherished by two people who value each other. If one party doesn't care, then the significance of the commemoration is lost. I looked at her in silence for a long time, and finally forced out a relieved smile. "You go ahead." Seeing my agreement, she showed a look of joy and immediately picked up her phone and rushed to the bedroom. Looking at her hurriedly leaving figure, I guess she never thought about why I was so forgiving today. I sat at the dining table in a daze. The carefully prepared dishes on the table looked untouched. About 10 minutes later, Zhuang Yi had changed her clothes and put on exquisite makeup before coming out of the room. While answering the phone saying she was leaving now, she hurriedly changed her shoes. She didn't even have time to say hello to me, not even sparing a glance. I slowly walked to the balcony and lit a cigarette. The familiar car downstairs seemed to have been waiting here for a long time. Before long, I saw Zhuang Yi jogging out of the hallway, naturally opening the passenger door and getting in the car. Seeing her so happy reminded me of our senior year sprint, when we finally had a weekend to hang out together. That day, she was also dressed up, and when she rushed to meet me, she looked just like this. Even this special treatment has already been given to someone else. I smiled bitterly and shook my head, my gaze falling on the ring on my ring finger as I extinguished the cigarette. I suddenly froze. I have known Zhuang Yi since kindergarten, and we were in the same school until university. We have known each other for over 20 years, dated for 4 years, and been married for 3 years. Perhaps the 7-year itch really exists. Even the longest relationships will eventually expire, as there are too many who cannot resist novelty. But I always thought Zhuang Yi wouldn't be like that. We promised countless times to grow old together, and getting married was a dream we cherished since childhood. Even if I wanted to believe they were just colleagues with a good relationship, I could no longer deceive myself after discovering their intimate photos yesterday. Yesterday, Zhuang Yi was on a business trip in Lin City. She told me she was going with her boss. But in fact, it wasn't just the boss. There was also Liao Yihong. Yesterday, I suddenly received a friend request from a stranger, and the profile picture wasn't the one Liao Yihong usually uses. But I still recognized him immediately from the background wall of his moments where he posted a photo of Zhuang Yi. Before I could carefully browse through his moments, he had already sent me a message. I could imagine his pride and show-off tone at that moment. "Chen Shun, it's one thing if you can't build a career yourself, but why do you have to affect Xiaoro? You have no idea how much she longs to achieve her own career, yet you only hinder her and constantly pick on her." Then he sent a photo of Zhuang Yi sitting on a single sofa in a hotel room, seriously looking over documents. Although her profile was mostly covered by her hair, I still recognized her at a glance. My heart tightened, and the pain made it hard for me to breathe. I don't know how long it took, but I finally calmed down and sent a trembling message. "Liao Yihong, what do you mean?" On the other side, he was constantly editing the text and took a long time to reply. "It's not ing much, just that I feel you have delayed her future. Compared to you, I am the man most suited to be by her side. Is this a direct declaration of war against me?" Doesn't Zhuang Yi see Liao Yihang's obvious intentions? Or is she just pretending to be clueless on purpose? I didn't reply to his message. I just subconsciously opened his moments to browse. Sure enough, they were all about Zhuang Yi. Every post was accompanied by a photo of Zhuang Yi, documenting their daily interactions. Photos of them toasting at company dinners, sharing food in the cafeteria, and Liao Yihang helping Zhuang Yi dry her hair in the office after she got wet in the rain. There were simply too many little moments of life, recording their ambiguous actions beyond friendship, yet they were their secret little joys. What almost made me faint was that photo taken under the brilliant fireworks at Disney, where the two of us were closely together, showing happy smiles. I glanced at the date. That day, Zhuang Yi said he was sent to Shanghai on a business trip by the company. Later, he said he was too busy with work, so he hardly replied to my messages all day. Looking back now, he really was too busy accompanying another man to Disney, with no time to even give me a perfunctory reply. Liao Yihang's message came through again. Chen Shun, your wife is really comfortable. Guess what we will do tonight? No matter what they do, I don't want to think about it anymore. Seeing these things with my own eyes is no different from being executed by 1,000 cuts for me. After the heart-wrenching pain, I trembled as I took screenshots of all the moments from her social media. This is evidence that she doesn't love me. I used to think I was surrounded by love, but now I realize that love has quietly shifted away when I couldn't see it. I originally planned to confront Zhuang Yi for an explanation after dinner today with these screenshots. Perhaps out of compassion, after more than 20 years of relationship, I want to give each other some space. But her hurried departure just now seems to have given me a silent answer. Perhaps they are just on the edge of ambiguity and hesitation, but once trust collapses, betrayal becomes a foregone conclusion. I originally wanted to tell her something. Despite being seen as unambitious, my low-key entrepreneurial project has already received angel investment. Once this project starts to take shape, my value will begin to soar. Perhaps soon I will become the president of a promising startup, and I could easily help Zhuang Yi achieve her aspirations. But now, it seems unnecessary to say any of this. Late at night, I had fallen asleep, but was awakened by the rustling sound outside the door. Zhuang Yi had returned. I glanced at the time on my phone. It was already 2:30 in the morning. During this time, she hadn't sent me a single message or made a phone call. Before she entered, I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. Now I have no mood to communicate with her. She walked slowly towards me, finally squatting by the bed, gently stroking my cheek and eyebrows with her fingers. She softly said, Chen Shun, I brought you some desserts from Jiangji. Do you want to get up and eat a little? Chen Shun. After calling me a few times and seeing that I still didn't respond, she gently sighed and turned to go to the bathroom to take a shower. I opened my eyes, looking at the fogged glass door of the bathroom, feeling extremely melancholic. She still remembers my favorite late-night snacks and brings me a portion every time she returns at night. Clearly, she knows everything, so why choose to betray me? Our relationship has always been a model envied by countless people since childhood, and we walked into the wedding hall under everyone's expectations. Happiness was clearly within our reach, so close at hand. But why did she give up walking on the path of happiness and turn to another road full of the unknown? I can't understand, and I am unwilling to accept it. Every time I think of this, my heart aches so much that I can't breathe. Unknowingly, I have already fallen into a deep sleep. When I woke up, there was only a faint fragrance left beside me, the unique scent of Zhuang Yi. She had already gotten up and left early in the morning. Indeed, ever since Liao Yihang started picking her up for work, she has been getting up very early every day. They were going to have breakfast together. Liao Yihang had even said he wanted to see her early every day. I glanced at my phone, and there was a message from Zhuang Yi. I'm sorry, husband, I didn't spend our anniversary with you yesterday. Can I accompany you to Hong Kong for a trip after I finish this busy period? It looks like the guilty feeling of wanting to desperately cover up after doing something wrong. I didn't reply, still unable to understand why people can change so suddenly. Perhaps it's too sad, or perhaps I can't accept it. I want to find an answer that can convince myself. So I picked up my phone and found Chen Jin's number in my contacts. The neighbor kid who grew up with me and Zhuang Yi is also from the same neighborhood, but compared to him, Chen Jin lives closer, right across from my house. What made you think to call me? She seems to have just woken up, yawning continuously at the moment. I paused for a moment and asked, let me ask you a question. Why does a person change just like that? The other end of the phone fell silent, and after a moment, I heard her soft sigh. You already know? She asked tentatively. I frowned, not understanding her meaning. What? I asked. The next second, I received a WeChat message from her. Chen Jin sighed and said, I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how to start. I opened T. He screenshot she sent with confusion. It was her chat with Zhuang Yi from some time ago. Chen Jin sent her a photo and asked, is this you? Who is that man feeding you? He doesn't look anything like Chen Chun. The message was sent at noon, and Zhuang Yi only replied in the afternoon. Zhuang Yi replied, "Why are you still secretly taking photos? This is a colleague of mine who has a more enthusiastic and open personality after returning from abroad. You better not tell Chen Chun, or he will argue with me again." Chen Jin, don't you think you're being unfair to Chen Chun? Perhaps it's this implied relationship that makes her feel oppressed. Or maybe Zhuang Yi wants to find someone to confide in. So she vented her frustrations to this sister she grew up with. Don't tell Chen Chun. Actually, after all these years of getting along, I feel about him as bland as plain water. It really has no meaning at all. Do you understand this feeling? At that moment, my heart seemed to explode, and I could even hear a buzzing sound in my ears. Even my breathing became increasingly rapid without me realizing it. It turns out she was already tired of me, but why couldn't she just tell me directly? Did she have to hurt me in this way? Does being loved by two men make her feel more stimulated? I hung up the phone with Chen Jin, who was still talking, in a daze, and spent the whole day in a distracted state. Perhaps feeling guilty towards me, Zhuang Yi kept sending me messages today, but I didn't reply to any of them, and later she started calling me, which I still didn't answer. I just sat beside and watched the phone ring continuously, then it would automatically hang up when the time was up. Chen Chen, why aren't you answering the phone? Are you still not awake? It's already 2 in the afternoon. Send me a message when you see this, don't make me overthink. She could have just come home to find me, but she kept calling and messaging instead. My thoughts inevitably drifted back to that summer after the college entrance examination. On the day the admission results came out, she couldn't find me and called me all night long. I was at a gathering with classmates, and when she found out my location in the group, she immediately ran from home to find me. Her eyes sparkled as she excitedly said to me, "Chen Chun, I really got into the same university as you." I smiled too, unable to help but reach out to pat her head. In my first year of high school, I asked her which university she wanted to go to in the future. She looked at me with her bright eyes and said seriously, "Wherever you go, I will go." In the following 3 years, she really worked hard to keep up with me, giving up entertainment and focusing entirely on her studies. Hard work pays off. She really got into the same prestigious university as I did. I still remember, at that time, she was filled with thoughts of me. Under the teasing of our classmates, Zhuang Yi blushed and mustered the courage to say, "Chen Chun, can we be together now? I want to be your girlfriend." At that passionate age of 18, we officially got together. After transitioning from childhood friends to lovers, we became even closer, and every day was sweet. Because we understood each other so well, we could even remember each other's preferences from kindergarten. Perhaps it was because we had known each other for so long that Zhuang Yi was attracted to the novelty. I quickly packed my luggage and called a moving company to take me to the studio before evening. The studio is not big, but it's enough to fit another bed. After settling everything, I replied to Zhuang Yi's message. "Let's get a divorce. I will have the lawyer draft the divorce agreement and bring it to you in the next couple of days." After sending the message, I fell into a deep sleep in the small room of the studio. After packing for half a day and dealing with my inner turmoil, I felt utterly exhausted. When I woke up, it was already the next morning, and she still hadn't replied to my message. Just as I was about to ask a lawyer to draft the divorce agreement, I saw a familiar profile picture update in my friend's circle. Liao Yihong posted a picture and specifically mentioned me. A side photo of Zhuang Yi lying on the sofa, covered with a small blanket, sound asleep. Caption: "Little Ro looks even cuter after a little tipsy." My heart raced, feeling a surge of blood rushing to my head. No wonder she kept messaging and calling me during the day, but ignored my replies at night. It turns out she was at KTV, too drunk to know what was happening. I just don't know where she slept last night, at KTV or someone else's home. No matter where it was, one thing is certain, Liao Yihong was by her side. I smiled sadly and took a screenshot to save it. Then I found a lawyer to help draft the divorce agreement and started focusing on work. Once the project received investment, we had to start implementing it, and every day became very busy. It wasn't until 3 in the afternoon that my phone started buzzing with messages. "Chen Chun, what nonsense are you talking? Why are you suddenly mentioning divorce? You ignored me all day, and your first words are about divorce. Have you thought about my feelings? We've been together for so many years. How can you just abandon me like this? Give me a reason why you want a divorce." She sent so many messages, I had no heart to read them anymore. If only we weren't married yet, I could just delete and block her, ending things cleanly. Now I still need to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with her to get the divorce certificate. With a slight sigh, I set her to do not disturb. As for the reason, given the situation, I don't need to explain anything to her. Nymore. I put my phone on silent and continued to focus on work. Until the evening, I opened my phone and saw dozens of missed calls. All from Zhuang Yi. I thought she must be extremely anxious right now. Just as I was staring at my phone, my mom called. No need to guess. Zhuang Yi must have told her family about my intention to divorce her. Now my mom is coming to question me. Both our families share the surname Lin, and our parents were friends who supported each other before we were born. In the early years, they did business together, helping and supporting each other, and later both became well-off families. Before we were even born, our parents verbally arranged a marriage between us. They intended to bring us together, so when we started dating later, they were the happiest people. Our wedding was even more grand, with both parents inviting over 500 people to witness and bless our love. But now it seems to have turned into a joke. As soon as I answered the phone, my mom scolded, "Chen Chen, what's going on? Xiao Rou is crying and saying you want to divorce her." That is indeed the case. I did not deny it. After all, I had to give my family an explanation about the divorce. My mom's tone also became confused. "Honestly, is there someone else outside?" "I guess you could say that, but the one betraying the relationship is not me." Seeing that I didn't speak, my mom said seriously, "In any case, whatever happens, you two should come home and clarify things in front of us parents. Feelings cannot be taken lightly. After all, you have been together for over 20 years. After saying that, she directly hung up the phone. I looked at the divorce agreement drafted by the lawyer, thinking that this time I would just clarify things when I went back and then get the divorce. So I replied to Zhuangyi, "Let's go back home and clarify things." "Let's go back together." Jian Yin said he would drive us. Zhuangyi immediately replied, not even understanding why I brought up the divorce. "I can't believe she plans to take Liao Yihang's car back. Is she treating him as a driver or a husband?" "No." After replying to this message, I bought the next available train ticket and took a 2-hour ride home alone. On the way, I received a message from my partner. Many investors are optimistic about our project and want to collaborate with us. The project is progressing even more smoothly than we expected. We are really going to succeed. Looking at these messages, the gloom in my heart caused by relationship issues dissipated a lot. But originally, this joy should have been shared with Zhuangyi immediately, and now there's no one to share it with. The two families booked a private room at a nearby restaurant, and I rushed over as soon as I got off the car. When I entered, Zhuangyi was already there, holding her parents and complaining about something. Why? A wronged expression. My dad frowned when he saw me. "Why are you so late? Haven't you come back with Xiao Rou? Making my wife wait here for so long. How inconsiderate." They still didn't understand the situation, just listening to Zhuangyi talking to herself. Seeing this, Zhuangyi's mother came over to mediate. "Xiaofeng has always been sensible since childhood. Maybe something delayed her. It's tough on the road, so let's sit down and eat first." I was pulled to sit down, and when Zhuangyi saw me, her expression became even more aggrieved. It was as if my suggestion to divorce meant I was unilaterally abandoning her. I ignored it, simply taking my seat with a calm expression, and noticed that Chen Jin had also come. I raised my eyebrows and gave her a puzzled look. She shrugged, her face showing an expression of enjoying the drama. After all, both families have been old friends for decades, and when we sat down, no one brought up our divorce. We just continued chatting about family matters in a pleasant atmosphere. I just quietly ate my meal, listening to them talk about having children. Perhaps in their eyes, our years of relationship and talk of divorce is just a moment of anger. It's normal for couples to have some conflicts. Zhuangyi actively served me dishes and poured wine, like a well-behaved little wife. Chen Jin, sitting next to her, casually said, "Euro, you're being too proactive. Are you in such a hurry to get Chen Chen drunk?" "What's it to you? My husband just likes to drink a bit, and if he gets drunk, I'll take care of him." Zhuangyi replied nonchalantly, and then the two began to bicker playfully like when they were kids. The atmosphere in the private room was harmonious, as if no one cared about my mention of divorce. When I had eaten enough, I placed the divorce agreement I had prepared in my bag on the table. "Mom and Dad, Uncle and Aunt, I want to say something." Everyone looked at me with a hint of confusion, except for Chen Jin, who still wore a look of curiosity. "I want to divorce Zhuangyi. This is the divorce agreement. The house will be left to her, and the property will be split in half. My project is still in the implementation stage, so there is currently no substantial income. Therefore, the only joint property after marriage is that house and some savings." Upon hearing this, Zhuangyi immediately showed a sad expression, and my dad was so angry that he slammed the table. "What nonsense are you talking about? How dare you let Xiao Rou down when she is so good? I will break your legs." Zhuangyi's mother spoke in a gentle tone. "Xiaofeng, is there some conflict or misunderstanding between you? If so, let's talk it out together. Don't let emotions get the better of your relationship." "Chen Chen." Zhuangyi reached out and grabbed my arm, her tone becoming somewhat pleading. Under the glare of two fathers and the concerned gazes of two mothers, I shook my head and said, "This matter cannot be resolved. Sign it. We'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce tomorrow morning." I handed the divorce agreement to Zhuangyi, speaking in a calm tone. This action seemed to provoke her, and she suddenly became emotionally agitated. "Chen Chen, enough. Is it because I went to a company dinner and didn't spend our anniversary with you that you're throwing a tantrum? Can't you understand me? I'm about to get promoted. I can't mess up at this critical moment. Or is it because Liao Yihong drives me to and from work? He was kind enough to offer us a ride home today. Why are you being so petty? In her emotional outburst, she even spoke without thinking, forgetting that so many parents were present. This was the first time I saw Zhuang Yi lose control like this. Was she afraid of divorcing me? Yes, but not entirely. Because I had shown dissatisfaction towards Liao Yihong, she subconsciously rushed to defend herself. She did things behind my back, inevitably feeling guilty, and in various entanglements, she began to feel angry and ashamed. She wanted to push all the blame onto me, accusing me of being unreasonable, looking for a reasonable excuse for her inner turmoil. But I had already made up my mind, and I no longer felt like arguing with her. I opened my phone and pulled up the chat interface with Liao Yihong. This is my reason. Making this decision is not me being unreasonable, nor is it a whim, and I am not the one in the wrong. When I looked at Zhuang Yi again, she had lost her earlier anger, replaced by a look of helplessness. I smiled and said, "This is what you call an ordinary colleague. Besides commuting together, they can also stay out all night. Do you think I am petty, or did you do something to feel guilty about?" I was about to check Liao Yihong's secondary account on Moments, but I found out that he had deleted me at some point. But fortunately, I had saved a lot of evidence in advance, which I handed over to both parents for review. Those records of their daily flirtations left Zhuang Yi completely speechless after being exposed. "Xiao Yu, what are you?" Zhuang Yi's mother held Zhuang Yi, who seemed to have lost all strength, and was so angry that she started to stutter. My father, who was originally furious about my request for divorce, also looked at me with a pained expression after seeing this evidence. Zhuang Yi's father said angrily, "How could I have given birth to such a daughter? You've embarrassed us both. Apologize to Xiao Feng." "No need. Just get the divorce done." Whether Zhuang Yi apologizes or not is no longer important to me. I just want to divorce her and have nothing to do with her from now on. But unexpectedly, she lowered her head and apologized to me. "I'm sorry, Qin Shun. This matter is indeed my fault." She stood in front of me, bowing her head and bending down, her posture very low. The parents behind her hesitated, seemingly wanting to defend her, but finding it hard to speak up. "Qin Shun, can we talk alone for a moment?" She looked at me pitifully, her eyes full of pleading. I hesitated for a moment and said, "Okay, after we talk, go with me to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. Since we are getting a divorce, we should clarify everything properly." It was getting late, and we arrived at a long-established spicy hot pot shop, right outside our high school. This place holds many of our past memories. We used to talk about everything, but now we sit here in silence, unable to look at each other. Now, I also have no desire to talk to her anymore. If you want to keep defending yourself, then we don't need to waste time. I spoke first. She quickly called out to me with red eyes. I'm not defending myself. It's my fault. I don't know if you will believe me, but I didn't do anything beyond the line." I looked at her and asked, "What do you think the bottom line is?" "No kissing, and definitely no sleeping together." She seemed quite confident, as if she believed that as long as these things weren't done, it wouldn't count as betrayal or cheating. "So you mean you've held hands?" She lowered her head in guilt, still weakly arguing. "No, you have to believe me." I was too tired to listen to her excuses and lies anymore. I really felt exhausted. "Zhuang Yi, listen." I interrupted her, saying seriously, "Whether it's emotional cheating or physical cheating, to me, there's no difference. Betrayal is betrayal. Once trust collapses completely, it can never be rebuilt." I stood up to leave, and she quickly grabbed my hand, cautiously asking, "Please don't leave me. I really know I was wrong." Her sincere expression reminded me of how she looked when she confessed to me back then. Those beautiful memories made me feel nauseous. "You once told me that you hate people who betray feelings. You clearly understand everything yet still do such things. Is not getting a divorce because you want to continue enjoying the love of two men? Letting go of a relationship that has lasted over 20 years pains me more than anyone else, but I can only do this." At this moment, seeing Zhuang Yi's face again, my heart is still filled with confusion. Why did she do such a thing? Why betray me? I am furious, yet powerless. Zhuang Yi was taken aback for a moment, seemingly also affected emotionally. Is it really necessary to say such harsh words? I admit I didn't handle the boundaries of friendship well, but I didn't do anything beyond the limits. Why do you have to make such a big fuss? She snatched the divorce agreement from my hand and quickly signed her name on it. Angrily, she said to me, "Don't you want a divorce? We'll go get the divorce certif. I Kate first thing tomorrow morning. By the way, have you seen what projects you are researching in that shabby studio every day? What results have you achieved?" Liao Yihong was promoted to supervisor after just a year. He has the ability and ambition and can help me a lot. What are you so proud of when you have achieved nothing? Watching Zhuang Yi storm away in anger, I still couldn't understand. Since she has already fallen for someone else, why couldn't she just tell me openly? Do you think I would hold her back? Perhaps it's because of the career she pursues, that she easily fell for someone who could lead her. In the past, I was her best choice. Now it's Liao Yihong, perhaps just a moment of confusion. No matter what, I should end this relationship painfully. Are you okay? After Zhuang Yi left, Qin Jin suddenly appeared from somewhere. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't following you. I just happened to come over for a late-night snack. I smiled faintly and said, "Stop it, the food hasn't been touched yet. Let's sit down and eat together." She wasn't polite either, and after sitting down, she began to eat heartily. "I didn't expect you to be so decisive, really not planning to give her a chance." I frowned and said, "What? Do you want to speak up for her?" After a cough, she laughed and said, "Don't wrong me. I just like to gossip a bit. You're getting divorced tomorrow morning. What do you think?" I turned to look at the dark street outside, and Qin Jin didn't reply anymore. We went home together, just like when we lived across from each other as kids. Now it was even more convenient. But when I opened the door, she suddenly turned back and called my name, but shook her head and said it was nothing before entering her house. I was taken aback for a moment, not knowing why, but I didn't think too much about it. Early the next morning, the Zhuang family of 3 came. They brought gifts to sincerely apologize to me, and facing them who had taken care of me since childhood, I couldn't help but feel a bit reluctant. Xiao Feng. Xiaoro has realized her mistake. After all, she didn't do anything outrageous. Can you? No. I shook my head and decisively rejected their pleas. Zhuang Yi's bottom line is low, but I cannot accept such betrayal. I won't compromise even for my parents' sake. Seeing my firm attitude, they said nothing more and accompanied us to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize the divorce. After the divorce, I blacklisted and deleted all her contact information. Only then did I feel the weight in my heart completely lift. I began to devote myself wholeheartedly to my work, but a few days later, Zhuang Yi appeared in my studio. Her face was as dark as water, and she pointed at me, saying, "Haven't we already divorced as you requested? Why are you still trying to get back at me?" I was confused. "What do you mean?" She stared at me with a frown for a long time, then sneered, "Huh, still pretending? Besides you, who else would save so many screenshots and have such a vengeful heart?" She leaned closer, smirking, and said, "You actually still care deep down, right? Why are you so stubborn and unwilling to admit it?" I looked at her speechlessly and pushed her out the door. "I don't understand what you're saying. I'm busy, please leave." She grabbed the doorknob and stared at me tightly, saying, "You turned my affair with Liao Yihong into a PPT and posted it online. Now the whole company knows. Can you say it wasn't you?" I was stunned for a moment, then immediately reacted. I wondered why that guy, who clearly loved to show off to me, suddenly deleted me. Turns out he was backstabbed. One of these two is a supervisor, and the other is at a critical promotion period. Now that this scandal has come out, they've both been kicked out of the company. I was laughing inside but managed to keep a straight face. If you think it's me, then I guess it is. He specifically created a small account to do this kind of social media post. Isn't it just to show off to the world? Is the publicity not enough? If watching you guys make a fool of yourselves counts as caring, then I guess it does, haha. Zhuang Yi was so angry that she trembled, pointing at my nose. "Qin Shun, do you still have a heart? First think about whether you will have a job in the future." I pushed her out the door and locked it behind me. Jokes are certainly entertaining, but I really don't have time right now. Work has been incredibly busy lately. After a month of working day and night, the project I developed was a great success, and my personal assets reached tens of millions. My partner and I moved to the CBD in the city center, establishing our own company, and I truly became a young CEO. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of a tall building, overlooking the entire city felt incredibly refreshing. Perhaps this is the goal that Zhuang Yi and Liao Yihong want to pursue. After a few months, it seemed that Zhuang Yi heard about my current situation from her parents. She suddenly came to the company to find me. After hearing the secretary's inquiry, I considered asking her to tell Zhuang Yi to wait for me at the nearest cafe. When I arrived at the cafe, I almost didn't recognize her. It's only been a few months since we last met, but she seems to have become dull and lifeless, her face filled with exhaustion. She appears utterly dispirited, having completely lost her previous vitality. When she saw me, her eyes seemed to light up for a moment. "Qin Shun." She wanted to get up and hug me, but I stopped her. "Let's talk about the matter at hand. For the sake of uncle and aunt, let's meet one last time." Upon hearing this, tears immediately welled up in her eyes. With her head down, gripping the hem of her clothes, she said intermittently, "Qin Shun, I really know I was wrong now. Actually, I never liked Liao Yihong. It was just that we spent a lot of time together, and he happened to help me a lot, so..." She bit her lip, her voice becoming extremely weak. I added, "So you two became very close. without shame or restraint. She lowered her head, blushing and silent. I continued, "You don't still want to say that even so, you still love me, right?" She stammered for a long time, unable to say a word. I couldn't help but laugh and said, "With words like that, even you would be embarrassed to say them out loud, right?" "I'm sorry, Chen, I'm really sorry." I watched her continuously apologize and cry, but my heart felt no waves at all. There was no need to entangle with her any longer, so I turned to leave. Chen, can you give me one more chance? After more than 20 years of feelings, can you really just let go? Zhuang Yi grabbed my hand, pleading desperately. I have cut off contact with him. I will never do this again, okay? I was a bit annoyed by her persistence, so I took her to a secluded spot outside the store. I said very seriously, "Zhuang Yi, let me tell you one last thing. It's completely over between us. This relationship was abandoned by you. We are already divorced, and there is no relationship left. Please do not disturb my life anymore, okay? You don't need to make any more excuses for yourself." Liao Yihang was able to get close to you and develop an ambiguous relationship step by step because you allowed him to. Clearly, this is all your fault, yet you insist on blaming me. We have indeed spent too much time together, and we know each other too well, so in your eyes, our deep feelings are as bland as plain water. Zhuang Yi, I can also clearly tell you that I really don't have to be with you. From now on, we should never meet again. After saying that, I left Zhuang Yi, who was lost and dejected, without looking back. I will never see her again in this lifetime. I bought a house in this city and brought my parents to live with me. As for Zhuang Yi, I heard from Chun Jin that since they were kicked out of the company, they have been almost blacklisted by the industry. Two people who originally had a bright future suddenly fell into a valley. Without the filter, Liao Yihang also began to become increasingly annoying to Zhuang Yi, and she completely severed ties with him. After suffering a double blow in her career and love life, she finally thought of coming back to find me. If you say she once loved me, I certainly believe it, but I think the person she loves the most is herself. Because the person she loves the most is herself, she allows her heart to waver. For a long time afterward, I didn't see her at all. The busyness of work left me no time to think about the past. Until the new year when I returned. To my hometown, my mom couldn't help but knock on my door, hesitantly telling me that Zhuang Yi wanted to see me. I saw Zhuang Yi standing downstairs from the window, covered in white snow, shivering. I told my mom, I won't see her, not now or ever. On the other hand, Chen Jin came to work at my company after graduating from her master's program. She said, "We've played together since we were kids. You can't forget me now that you've become successful. At worst, I'll bring you lunch every day." I laughed and said, "Who needs your lunch? There's a huge cafeteria in the company." After that, we both laughed, as if we had returned to our childhood. It feels so good to be by your side. I wish it could last forever. Chen Jin sighed.